Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank my fellow commissioners for what they do, what they stand for. I've been able to serve with Commissioner Ivey for a couple of years, and I truly respect his opinion and his comments as we have worked through the last couple of years and through some issues that have been difficult for us, and even on a personal basis. And so I wanted to make sure and say that. And for Commissioner Ainge, and I'm going to say this because I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, "What's it like working with Commissioner Ainge?" And they say, "How is it?" And it has been, in the words that I've used to them, it's been very refreshing. And I appreciate your ability to work through issues, to work through them, and you're right. And a lot of things that he said there, he has an ability to order it in such a way that I appreciate. And so thank you for putting your name in the ring, your hat in the ring, and being able to to go through that grinder process, because it's not easy for both of you. Thank you. Well, thank you for being here. As I've contemplated on what I could say and what would be applicable, I live at the base of Mount Timpanogos, and I live on those hills right before you start going up. And that mountain always impresses me. It's always been one that it's iconic for us in this valley. And you see, part of it in our logo. And we have Utah County, the heart of Utah. And I know we've spoken a lot in the past, and we'll continue to speak. And I felt like it would be important for me to talk about, what is the heart of Utah County, the heart of Utah. I know, like I said, that's been spoken on, but I wanted to kind of continue that theme, because a lot of it comes from those that we honor today, the Victor Williamses that sit right next to us or live nearby, and the Qualtrics's that start out of their basement and become something. I think those are phenomenal goals that they make. And what does it mean? What does it mean for the county and the county government and how we function and how we work? So because I live by Timpanogos, there is a story about how that name came about. It's a folklore story, but it talks about two Indians. It's fateful. They both die in the end. But they're young, they're energetic, they want to do things. One of them was called Timpanak, the other was called Euconogos. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Together, Timpanogos. One was a young Indian brave, and the other one was a young Indian maiden. And their story, and I'm not going to go through their story all the way, but their story finally wound up where they wound up dead. And they died. But if you look at Timpanogos itself, and if you get back, and if you take that peek, you can actually see the outline of what looks like a person on the top. And I love it in the spring when the snow recedes back up and it looks like that cover is there. It's just beautiful. But I wanted to point out one more thing. We didn't put it in the video because there are so many good things that happen in this county, it's hard to put it all in there. There's a cave up there. It's the Timpanogos Caves. How many of you have been to the Timpanogos Caves? Just curious. That's a hike. You just don't skip and hop right up there. You have to hike. But you get up in there and you go back in, and they turn the lights off like they always do in caves, and they shine a light on the heart. And we call it the heart of Timpanogos. It's phenomenal. It's beautiful. And it's supposed to be symbolic of those two individuals coming together. And that heart is supposed to be symbolic of that. So I wanted to talk about some of the employees that I believe in county government are the heart. And they're symbolic of a greater group of individuals that we have in the county and what they do and how hard they work. One of them is Bryce Larson, who works in community development. And he doesn't even know I'm telling him this story, and I know he's sitting right back there. But I was impressed because we get a lot of calls, and most of the time we get calls, and they're hard. They're hard calls, and they're negative calls. But I got a call this one day, and they said, I'm so impressed with Bryce Larson. And I said, please tell me. he said, well, I went in, I had a concern and a problem, and I was trying to figure it out. And I walked through I sat down with him in his office, and we walked all the way through this concern. And I came out, and my first thought was, oh, he solved it for you. Actually, no, he didn't. He didn't. The constituent walked out not getting what he thought he wanted. He walked out of there, but the experience that he had with Bryce Larson was over the top. He said he listened. We walked through all the situations and scenarios, and he explained to me why this couldn't happen. But he felt like he'd been listened to, and at least he explored it. That's one example. So thank you, Bryce, for being a part of the heart of Utah County government. Second one is Jeff Smith. And Jeff, I didn't see him come in. Is he here? Darn it. Okay, somebody will have to relay it back to him, because I was asked to let him know. So the day after Thanksgiving is a Friday, and we give that day off to the employees. And I was at Thanksgiving feasts and doing things, and I got a phone call. I answered the phone call, and then a constituent said, I've got a problem with a recording. I know it looks like you have your day off. I've got to get this done. I don't know what to do. And so I said, well, why don't you call the recorder, Jeff Smith, and see if there's anything he can do. He called Jeff, and of course, when you see a number you don't recognize, most of us say, let the voicemail take it. So he put a recording on. To his surprise, he got a call back. Jeff called him back, and he says, what can I do for you? And he says, I'd like to get this recorded. I've got a problem with it. We're trying to get it done in a timely manner. And the constituent later called me back and said, I'm so impressed that even on a day off, somebody would take the opportunity to try to find a way to make it work. It ultimately, again, not because of Jeff's efforts, but because of bank issues and some other issues, it didn't go through until Monday. But the effort, again, paid big dividends. Last, and I wanted to mention this one, Neil Peterson, he's our IT director. He's been here, can you believe it, over 40 years. I don't know, 41. He's been here a long time. And I've teased him over the years, and I don't even know if he's here either, but I always say to him, well, you saw the first computers. I mean, do you know Moses personally? And no, come on. But he talks about how Utah County has grown and how things have changed. And can you believe that we can send an email or a mail now around the world in seconds, where we used to have to put it on Pony Express? Anyway, so I was asking about some of the good things that he's seen and also some of the frustrations. And he was typing this back and forth to me or texting me. And one of the things, a lot of the good things he was saying were phenomenal. But he says, the one thing that I don't like is the autocorrect. Does anybody have a problem with autocorrect? And this is what came back. Yeah, the problem I don't like is autocorrect because it has become my worst enemy. If you don't get that, you will in about an hour. So I applaud the county employees for what they do, what they continue to do. It's amazing. There are challenges. We feel the challenges. Sometimes we always feel like we're at the tip of the spear, but I'm sure that there's a lot of things they do we have no idea that is happening. So thank you for the work that you do. And I guess it would be important for me to recognize that none of us here drink from the wells that are actually, well, maybe some, but most of us don't drink from the wells that our hands actually put to the shovel or to the drill that drilled those wells. We have to stand on the shoulders of others. We stand on the shoulders of many county commissioners in the past. We stand on the shoulders of many businesses and government leaders who have built infrastructure and places for us to come and assemble. We don't drink. I have never drunk from the tap in which I was the one that drilled the well, and I would assume that most of us probably are the same way. It's important for us to recognize that, and we make deliberate decisions in this county. It's not by accident. It's not by accident that things happen. There's deliberation. I know we spend a lot of time working through issues. We spend a lot of time in preparation and planning. deliberate actions of the past that have given us a certain course that we can go. Some of those deliberate actions has been keeping taxes low, encouraging businesses to land in the cities, to use common sense in land uses, and to overall have a heart, because I've heard this often. I've heard it that government doesn't have a heart when it comes to, individual interests. But I believe that Utah County, and especially working with my fellow commissioners, will look at issues and find ways to say, how can we say yes to this, not always just no. As we prepare for the future, there are issues. Transportation is an issue. Transportation it'll always be with us as an issue. Transportation is something that we will be dealing with it over and over. As soon as that blacktop's finished, it becomes a deteriorating asset. It's a liability. And so it's something that we're going to have to deal with. I remember when I came here to BYU many years ago, with my parents, I should back up. With my parents, we'd go down south to southern Utah, down to a dairy farm where my grandparents were. And there was times we'd have to go through the cities. State Street was the biggest two-lane road that we had for going down there. I-15 had gaps in it. We used to stop all the time at Nephi. It was the halfway mark. We'd stop at the Frosty Freeze, get an ice cream or whatever, and then we'd continue down. And now we've got that from up in Canada all the way down to Mexico, this wonderful freeway that allows us to move back and forth. Another one is economic development. Economic development in this county has been phenomenal. When I came down here to BYU years ago, it was Geneva Steel, Brigham Young University, the hospital, and the school districts. They were the biggest employers. That was it. When Geneva Steel had a problem with steel prices, we all suffered. Now look at what's going on in Utah County. There is so much activity going on, so many cranes up north and building going on. It is amazing. And when they did a study on economic development in the state of Utah, it used to always be centered right around Salt Lake City. But because of the economic activity of the Qualtrics's, of those who are coming here for a reason, for the labor force, for what we have in our quality of life, and also for their product, it has pulled that epicenter all the way down to Sandy now, for the entire state of Utah. That is amazing. It's never done by accident, but it's usually done with preparation. And in most cases, I heard mentioned here, it's the ability for government to stay out of the way, and allow it to happen. The next one I want to talk about is rapid growth. In the decade between 2000 and 2010, we had a record. 140,000 new people came into this county. Never been done before. Unbelievable. Everyone was like, what are we going to do with this? Well, from 2010 to 2020, we're going to break that record. They're projecting between 160, maybe 180,000 people coming in here. As we project on into the future, there may be decades in which we have over 200,000 people that come into Utah County. With that comes challenges. The cities will bear a lot of that brunt of those challenges, land spaces. We have about 220,000 acres of buildable land here in Utah County. A lot of that south and west. And we're going to have to find ways, and we're going to have to be on the forefront of trying to find some of those ways. One of those ways that we're going to be considering just in the near future is, now I have to back up, most of the people live in cities. There's only 8,700 people approximately that live in unincorporated Utah County. That means outside of a city. So that number's been flat for a long time. So most of the people live in cities. And so for our part, as we're looking at what we can do, I was just notified the other day that we're looking at the housing issue, what we can do to be a part of the solution. And even though it's outside of a city, we're looking at doing something with mother-in-law apartments so that they can actually rent part of their homes to those that have a need, because there's a housing crisis here. We need to be looking in that direction and ways that we can help solve some of these problems. Again, I just would like to thank you. I am honored to be able to serve with these fine gentlemen and with the staff, and especially to be able to represent you as Utah County citizens. The future is very bright for Utah County. There's a lot to do. It's fun to be in a job in which you come in the morning and you have, in some cases, no idea how it's going to end up by the end of the day, because things come in such a fast pace. But it's exciting to be here. It's exciting to be a part of Utah County for our children, for the children that are being taught, so they can help solve some of the problems of the future that we have. I shouldn't say problems, challenges, because we live in an environment, in a world that we argue about first world issues, when most of the world's arguing about or trying to find ways in which they can eat. And we're worried about how long is the bus stop going to take before the next one comes, or about how long my break is at lunch. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for coming this afternoon to this State of the County.